Thanks for your refresher, Nagini. So we are going into the last but not the least, because this is where really agility started and slowly evolved to the place where we are going diversified to the various no multiple domains and extending our support uh, beyond the IT from the Agile. But now let's come back to the no IT sector, and we have a couple of researchers done inside IT organizations with Agile, with process agility. Very interesting papers are coming up, and chairperson of this panel is going to be Harihara Prasad from TBCI, from Renault Nissan, a very senior leader, right from the days of no Agile's community started in Chennai. He's always there in every other community without any judgmental bias and always helping people around him. So we are welcoming Hari to head the panel, and discussant would be Prasad Saranathan. Is currently program project manager in Scope International. Very nice, agile enthusiast, upcoming in many agile communities throughout Chennai. So I welcome both of them, Hari and Prasad, to aid the panel, and they will give you a description of what really research has been conducted on the process agility space, and let's see what are all the takeaways. Keep your no questions posted in the chat. Just that gives just the fuel for this conference, and I will be sharing many more links for if you have any ideas, which I know that this will be inspiring many people to do some research. If you have some interest, please let us know. We will be sharing some forms with you at the end of the conference. Thank you so much. Over to you, Ari, and Prasad.
Thank you, Padma.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah. Over to you, Prasad.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Okay. Let's start with the first research paper, which has been done by Mahesh Jade. And let me introduce Mahesh. Mahesh is an agile evangelist and dedicated to championing the cause of building winning teams and winning products. And he is a very good facilitator by passion. He has it in him, and a coach, where he used to be called as an agilist by heart, and he works to bring agility to the organization and humanizing the workplace. He wanted always the humanizing the workplace with all the humors and other things. Okay, so let's welcome Mahesh. Mahesh, so over to you, Mahesh.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prasad, for a beautiful introduction. And I had to just call out the in the beginning the name of the paper, and then I can share my PPT. So this has got a good background. I mean, special thanks to Padma ma'am. We were doing the agile coaching learnings, and we were into the ICP ACC batch. And at that point of time, this conversation came into the picture, and we started thinking about it. So that have been a journey, and since then we have been thinking about this topic. The title for the topic is the significance of the strategies and planning and designing a framework which is agnostic of um, agile frameworks, and that allows us to do an transformation based on the agile principles. So not looking at a particular framework in particular, but looking at agile as a whole was our intent, and we came up with some interesting things around it, and this paper is the outcome of that. Before I get started, my sincere thanks to Harihara Prasad and Prasad Sarnathan. Their quick inputs were very meaningful, and they just shaped our conversation and paper to for a better thing. At this point of time, I'll start sharing my screen. Great. So that's the name of the paper. And what really warms my heart is the second mention, the mention of the co-author. because that is none other than Padma Priya Devarajan, and she have really encouraged me to look at this topic and add my insights and do some research, and altogether we have come up with this. That is really one of the best things that have happened to me into being into Agile. Padma ma'am also may talk about certain topics when we are discussing into the conversation. Um, so, so why this research is, as we spoke about, this research is something that attempts to showcase an approach, and it is essentially it is looking to kick off some conversation where people should look at agility as a whole. So interestingly, when we say what is agile, so in one of my early days into agile and into my scrum master role, somebody asked me on someone, there was a conversation that what is agile, and people started coming out with different answers, maybe following scrum and maybe being transparent and many other things. But then at the end somebody just called out that being agile really means being following the 12 principles and the 4 values, and that is at the core of this research paper, that we want to do. We wanted to do some research that people want to get their companies and their organizations and their teams transfer to agile, but sometimes they look at a one particular agile framework or platform. But we wanted to broaden that view and just encourage people to think about the entire agile spectrum and pick based from each of the spectrum and bring into the practice. So that was our intent. With that intent we started the research, and the abstract of this research, it talks about that agile provides the uh, values to be followed and principles to be followed to implement the thing. But sometimes when agile is implemented in organizations, people do not really focus on the principles and values, but they focus more on the practices and the frameworks. So that is a quick abstract. And according to Team Goy, when we were researching on that, there was a very beautiful quote that talked about a dogmatic approach to agile, such as prescriptively maybe adhering to just Scrum or just Kanban, is really not agile, and it could emerge as a serious anti-pattern. If organizations are really sticking to a one particular framework, that could be really a serious anti-pattern. So with that, we move to the next part. And this presentation is put into 3 parts. In the first part, we talk about the agile frameworks and platforms and how beautiful they look when they are together. That's the first part. In the second part, we have come up with a language of transformation that a particular organization or the team members and the leadership, what should be the kind of dialogue they should be having with each other to make sure that this transformation is outcome driven and not just output driven, and people are not just focusing on increasing the velocity for that matter, but really valuable outcome from both team and the customer perspective. And in the end we have got a beautiful metaphor to talk about. So at this point of time, I think uh, when people want to get transformed into agile, they have a lot of things into their mind. Maybe leadership wants their team to do a very good planning, to come up with very uh, reliable estimates. Sometimes they really want people to limit the work in progress. At times maybe they want people to have very good slicing and lot of things that they aspire for. But maybe when a particular organization really puts all these things together in a single bucket and throws it out to the uh, team members or a particular team, they do not find the real purpose behind associated with each of these things. And sometimes people just merely start following what has been told to them. As an quick example, maybe the daily scrum. People come to the meeting, they do not really understand the purpose of the meeting at times, that we want to have a conversation and we want to understand the route, and we want to focus on a goal. We are here to discuss a goal and then accordingly adjust our ways of working. So this is just one of the example where people get started with a lot of things without really understanding the essence of a particular thing. And some of the factors that really affects such kind of transformation are sometimes the organizational goal are not aligned well with the agile transformation goals. Sometimes the roles are inexperienced. At times it so happens that people tailor their values for the agile transformation. Sometimes they are doing agile, but they are really some part of the agile they are really not adhering to. One of the example could be they still have project management practices uh, followed in a very rigorous way. where they're really not looking at ways of agile. So that's there. And then sometimes unrealizing the underlying organizational impediment could be one of the factor. Just a quick check I wanted to make. Am I well audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
Yes,
you
yes.
were
yes,
very
sir.
much, very much.
Absolutely, surely. Great. So what we can do at the end of this, all of these three factors that we have come up with, we can take some questions and then we can move ahead. At this point of time, so Kanban. So one particular organization just wants to go and transform their workforce into agile, and sometimes they can go and say that we are Kanban, or some team may say we are Scrum, and some team may say no, we are not Scrum, we are just following XP in our organization. But there are a lot of beautiful things, beautiful practices, and very meaningful things that they can take out from other practices, and they can mix together to have a better balance. So if we look at and platform agnostic agile transformation, and if we say that Kanban is one of the things that they want to consider, so what Kanban can bring to them is very absolutely a great value, because visualization comes from Kanban, and people, no matter which agile methodology they are into, they must understand how Kanban have come up to this stage, and how visualization plays a big role into the transformation. So learning about visualization by keeping their eyes open, whether it is a Scrum or XP that they are following, but still uh, building those initiatives, building those experiments which make people more visual, which make the transparency more and more in the team, which makes people understand what they're working and why they're working for, is really the essence of this one of these things. Another very powerful thing Kanban can bring to any team, whether they're Scrum or XP or any other framework they're following, is work in progress. And people should really look at it in a way from a personal agility manner as well, because it's our own experience. If we try to relate, if I'm doing 5 different things at one point of time, I might not be able to do all of them really well. But if I'm doing just two, or maybe if I have capacity to do three, if I understand and recognize my capacity to do multiple things at time, and if I focus on that limit, that really starts showcasing the result. So sometimes team getting into agile transformation, if they really in the beginning, if they just focus on maybe these two aspects, being really very well visual and really picking up the work which they can really do, maintaining the right focus, then that might begin a very nice agile journey for them, that they are doing something with a purpose, not just because somebody have told them, or somebody just conducted a quick workshop and now from the next day onwards they want to start adhering to those practices. Doing something with some purpose and with some passion is what this paper is proposing. So next to that, the one of the most beautiful agile framework, Scrum, and it is beautiful. And one of the beauty is that it allows people to apply their intellect. It is not completely written with everything, and that gives a lot of opportunities to look at other frameworks and mix the practices, and essentially becoming agnostic of what framework they're following. But still sometimes people really stick to Scrum. I mean, and there are a lot of opportunities that people might be missing on the way. So this paper attempts to talk about the Scrum as well and the other frameworks as well, not to disrespect any framework, but just to kick off this conversation that Scrum is not the only way we can become agile, but there are multiple different ways that we can adopt and that we can look at to become agile. So Scrum essentially what it brings to the team with a purpose is maybe demonstration. Maybe Scrum talks about people should demo, and customer should be aligned with what is getting developed. And one of the beautiful thing that I always tell folks when I'm talking about demos is that if we look at a barber, and whenever we go for a salon and we meet a barber, I think that guy, he showcases the agility at the core, because he has put a mirror, he or she has put a mirror in front of the his customer, and in the real time he's showcasing the results, whatever is coming out from that haircut or that particular service. It is all the time visible in the real time. So that is what one of the aspect of agility is, that we have to be very much open to feedback, and we have to be very much transparent. So with that, I think if we start adopting to the practices of each framework in a very, very meaningful way, that people understand why we are doing a particular thing, then it really becomes a thing of beauty. And this is not just one of the way. In research paper, we have talked about multiple other things that Scrum can bring to the table, but this was just one of the things that I picked for this conversation. If I can go to the next slide, it talks about XP. And I think this is one place where I think we talk about Shuha and Re in Agile, and we want people to start with something, then get better at something, and then break the boundaries and find out something beautiful and meaningful in a new way. So I think XP opens that whole gate for any Agile team. And I truly, we have put this into the paper. We truly believe that unless somebody is looking at practices from XP, they are really not uh, bringing the best of Agile into their practices. So if we look at maybe the pair programming, so we want people to work together. We always say that this is one team, and so people should work together. But until and unless we really bring that passion and really bring that practice into the team, that okay, two people can simultaneously work on something and they can provide review to each other, then until that point we're not really creating that spirit of working together. XP talks about TDD and BDD. So that essentially really brings a lot of good things into Agile, because at that point of time, people become test first teams, or people become behavior first teams. And if they are test first, then maybe their QA and their developers are really working very well together from the first day of development, or for any feature, or for that matter, any story. And similarly, for the behavior driven development, I think the customers and the developer they start coming out together from the very first day. So I think in the Agile transformation journey, if people look at, let's get started with Kanban, let's understand visualization, then let's put some work in progress limit with some purpose, that people understand why we are doing a particular thing, not just because we have been told to do. And then they move to Scrum, and then maybe they start pulling out some practices from XP, and not just Kanban, Scrum, and XP. But if they start looking out for other frameworks and start pulling out, and just keep their eyes open that what is happening outside. So this is essentially is about maybe looking at agility in agile way. That so sometime back, this is very prominent example. We always used to talk about co-locating. We always like that co-locate team is one of the beautiful thing to do, and it is very important to do, to have a co-located team and everything. But suddenly COVID happened, and now we are completely remote, and we are completely not just thriving at remote working, but we are exploring more ways to cut the cost, and more ways to maybe even more productivity and everything. So that is how Agile have been, and that has been one of the beautiful thing that I happen to be, I mean, and to many of us around the world coming into Agile and learning about Agile, not just at work, but in their way of working, in their way of life. I think it has changed the people for better. And through this paper, we are just proposing that when we talk about software, or not just software, but other things, looking at every framework, find them friendly, bringing in practices, and just building your own flavor of Agile may really work very, very, and very, very wonderfully for any particular organization. That is what we are proposing at this point of time. So a quick thing we just came up with in the research paper, that if somebody likes this idea and they want to go for it, maybe what will be the starting point for that? So it could be very, very conversation based. I mean, there are steps: step 1, step 2, step 3, and step up to 5. But it is all about having the right conversation. So with the right conversation, people will be able to understand that what are their real needs, what are the blocks that they are facing, because of which they are not able to make up to the customer's expectation, or not able to have a reliable flow of working, why their schedules are not being made, and everything. So I can just go through this, and this is more about having a conversation with business and the teams and the stakeholders. So first thing first, maybe people can do an as is analysis of using the tools such as maybe interviews, surveys, questionnaire, and leadership discussion, so that they understand what is their as is state. Second thing could be the gathering the data and facts from that, and try to figure out what is a real organization impediment that they want to solve by going agile. So they get a very clear focus that what is that is not working for us, and then maybe they can start looking at a bigger agile umbrella to bring in the best practices that really makes the right match for them, and not just getting started with one framework that may not really align with their organizational needs. So at that point of time, the third thing we have just put into the research paper while doing this research was deriving the goal for agile transformation, which we just talked about. The fourth thing would be, and this is very important. I think people say that we are agile, we are doing Scrum, we are following Kanban, but essentially until and unless, and we are proposing this thing, that until and unless a particular team adopts a lean mindset, they are really not well equipped to become agile. So this is what we are just putting forward, that a team should adopt a lean mindset. They should read, they should talk, they should watch, and they should do everything that allows them to understand what lean thinking is. So because when they are really proficient into lean thinking, then maybe they are actually well suited to get transformed and start adopting the practices. And the last step that we have proposed is that based on the outcome of the step 2, which is about finding out the data and facts, people should start referring to the agile principles and values. So it makes a very good match, that now that they have their own facts and figures and data, that we are good at one point and we are not good at second, and vice versa, and then they have the agile principles. So they always can figure out what is our immediate focus areas in among these all 12 principles or these 4 values, and accordingly they can start picking up the right practices, be it from Scrum, be it from Kanban, or be it from XP, and they can make sure that they are filling in the gaps in a very meaningful way, and not just going by one framework to follow without understanding what their underlying needs really are. And in the research paper, we have talked about it in a more detail. We have created tabular structure wherein people identify the gaps or people identify the top focus areas, and at that point of time they include the principles and values. They pick up the top. So the way we pick up the top items from the backlog, people can pick up the top items from the values and principles, and on top of it they can pick up the right practices. It could be from XP, it could be from Kanban, and based on the need of the team they can bring those things together so that they are really transforming with some purpose and with some intent, and people are enjoying. When we say people, both customers and the team that works for the customer. So that was the first part, and this is that tabular structure that we have created. We are still getting it better day by day, but as of now, and I know at this point of time, maybe Padma ma'am also would like to talk a bit, because these have been our favorite. We have been looking at this table, that how people identify the immediate priorities and how people pick up the best practices. So
Thanks for giving this,
Padma ma'am,
Mahesh. Just a few words. So why this research was conceptualized is, when we are talking about agile, people are directly deploying Scrum without any assessment, without any no evaluations, how far it will be suitable for the system. Now it has been tightly coupled that they are straight going to either Scrum if it is in the team level, or if it is a scaling frameworks if it is in the organization level. But not everywhere Agile is fetching the results which they are desiring. So where is the gap, right? The primary gap where no people going mistakenly is, Agile is basically about its values and principles, which is lagging in every other system. So, out of those values and principles, first we need to evaluate which part of the principle or values we are lagging at. The organizations are lagging at. So that has to be done. And the second point is, don't go by the practices blindly. Practices are helpful to implement these principles and practices into the system, but that doesn't mean it is going to bring the values. Just the practice is not equal to the values. So give your utmost attention for implementing the values and principles using the frameworks rather than heavily depending on the frameworks. That's the core point of this research. So what we are proposing, while we are going with this mindset of doing real agility, what can be the proposal? You can ask a question. You go and suggest something called Agnostic Agile in my organization. In that case, we are just proposing a realistic framework. The first column in this tabular column is the 12 principles of Agile, nothing but. The second one is, just think of what is it is speaking about. For example, the first one, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. What are all the factors that first principle is talking about? The first one is, it is talking about iteration. The second one is talking about customer focused, right? And third one is, it is saying to reduce the uncertainty. By early, the word early, uncertainty and small releases and prioritize the customer needs. These 5 factors are the principles the first principle is talking about, right? So for the first principle, what are all the similar practice we have in either the frameworks of Scrum or Kanban or XP? We have sprint to implement iteration or time box. We have sprint in Scrum, iteration in XP, product backlog prioritization in Scrum, right? Sprint review ceremony to engage the customer. So these are all the practices which was brought to implement that value, the principle. So if you want to implement a framework agnostic agile transformation in your organization, what you can do is include a fourth column. Okay. Now, similar to this practice, adhering to that values and principles, what can be done for my system? Think. You are agile, you are agility. Think. Ideate what works for you based on the organizational impediments assessment which Magesh narrated, right, in the step 1 and step 2, collecting all those data and the results. Ideate for your own exclusively. See, I used to say every organization is unique, their strategy, their product, their service. Though products may be same for few organizations, still their strategy is different. So every organization is unique, like you have a thumbprint in your thumbprint. So not all the frameworks bundled has an come with Kanban or Scrumban or Scrum XP or whatever safe or whatever it is. If you are deploying it directly, it is not going to fetch you the desirable results. So customize it. The agile transformation models, the agile transformation package which you are doing for the organization should also be exclusive. That's the utmost goal of this research. So not to take much time, if you see the subsequent principles for each one of the principles, what are all the principles? For example, the fourth one, business people and developers should interact daily throughout the project. It says daily interaction meeting and economics of the small batch size, cost of delay. These are all the factors the fourth principle is saying, right? So what are all the practices we have in the Scrum for that or in XP? Daily stand-up meeting, availability of product owner at any time, user stories, backlog refinement meeting, BDDs, all these concepts are covered for this principle. So similar to this, you can ideate for your own. Its responsibility of the each agile coaches is the same, to think about what is specially needed or how can I customize the package for this. So similarly, we have listed all these 12 principles no for all the practices. It will be released in the IJTRD paper. You can have a reference. Having this paper as a reference, you can create your own framework agnostic agile transformation model, and that's the outcome of this paper. Thank you so much. I doesn't want to take much of your time, Magesh. Please proceed and just give an overview of the remaining stuff.
Absolutely, Padma ma'am. It's really wonderful, and we got a very beautiful comment in the comment section that talks about customization is the beauty of Agile, and we are going to definitely going to talk about it in the latter of this presentation. So, in the interest of time, I know the second topic we have to get started with, and this is really about outcome-driven diagnosis. So, let's suppose one particular organization started customizing to their needs. They picked up the right practices, right frameworks, but how do they ensure that they are moving forward in a right path? How do they ensure that they are doing something which is bringing outcome? So at this point of time, we have done some research and we have come up that as a leadership, there could be 3 roles, wherein there could be a representative from development team. It could be a scrum master or an agile development leader. We are not calling it out as an agile development manager to be specific. We have just named it as agile development leader. Maybe agile delivery leader to be specific, and the other one could be the business and stakeholder or the product owner, and the third aspect is that it could be an management. So when we say management, it could be the higher level management, which is looking at the program and projects and everything. So what we have come up with is that people should focus, and I'll just move this slide to the next one. So essentially, we are talking about the language of transformation, that what kind of dialogue people should have with each other so that they make sure that they are going agile, they're adopting to different practices from each of the framework, but they are still very much focused on the outcome. And the first thing talks about being more reliable. And I think this plays a very big role, that stakeholders find like stakeholders tend to support a particular team very much when they know that this particular team is very reliable. They come up with some estimates, or they come up with some ideas and things which are very reliable. They propose something, and they can really relax and look at the outcome to come after some time. So how do we really make sure that people the teams are reliable? So the kind of dialogue that these three personas can have is that maybe agile leader can constantly keep talking about, are we changing the story size starting the sprint. And this may look very small, but this has a very big impact, because let's suppose one particular team says this is the 5 story pointer item, and I start working on it, and after some time they come up with, we discovered something and it is a 13-story point story, and we need 2 more sprint to complete that. Then at that point of time, then they break that loop of reliability. So I think in the agile transformation program, the leader should always talk on these similar lines. The other example that I'm quoting is that maybe business can look at, are we adding and removing stories in the middle of the sprint? Are we really trying to keep up the focus? So on one hand, we want to become reliable, and on the other hand, if business is continuously restructuring and adding and removing stories in the middle of the sprint, if it is happening regularly, we are open to changing requirements. But if it is happening regularly, then that might really create a distraction and get the team away from the focus, and that may result into having a less reliable team. Again, management can look at this perspective, and they can say that, can we check if we have a T-shaped team or T-shaped skills in our team, that people can pick up something and they can start swarming along with other members, and a lot of things that come into the picture when we have T-shaped skills into the team. So these are we have created these 5 different columns, and these are the kind of dialogue people can have with each other at a leadership level to make sure that we are outcome driven, that we are going agile, and at the same time we are getting the right outcomes, and the small wins on the way. The other one is about achieving velocity. And when we say velocity, it is not higher velocity, it is optimum velocity. We are not proposing that people should go after making a team go from 20 story points to 40 or 40 to 80, but it should be an optimum velocity, whichever really is apt for the capacity and the capability that team is having. And how we can make sure that that velocity is increasing, or that is coming to an optimum point, is through maybe training the team members, understanding the dependency and blockers the team is waiting for, resolving the blocker before starting the particular story to start working on it, understanding the skill bottlenecks, making people train onto different skills so that they can really come together and help each other whenever required, so that they can work in parallel, and a lot of benefits. So these are the questions that we have put up, which if people start asking each other and people start having conversation on these terms, then the chances are very higher that they are becoming an outcome driven agile transform team, and that is what we all crave for. um, and of course there is other side to it. I mean, this is not part of the paper, but still want to call out, uh, agile, we always have a softer side to it. People want to get empowered, people want to feel happy. So these sides may be not getting directly covered into this, but still when people start looking at different agile practices and framework, they would definitely find those aspects into their process as well. And at that point of time, maybe they can start bringing in things together from that perspective as well. So moving on next, the third thing is about achieving consistent lead time. And I know these days, if we go on some of the Kanban related things, people are really talking a lot about it, that how we can really have a consistent lead time. And to ensure that, maybe the agile delivery leaders or the scrum masters, they can really start looking at their backlogs. They can see if the particular story is lying ideally into their backlog for a very long time. That means there are higher chances that maybe its context or its priority may have been lost. So can we really keep our backlog relevant? Can we really keep it refreshed? Can we keep refining the stories which matter the most? And can we keep prioritizing the backlog in a way that is producing just a value, not just completing any epic or something? So that is one thing that we have spoken about, and these are the type of question that we have put forward, that if people start asking each other, chances are that they will have the valuable conversation, which will bring out those insights. And again, they will come to that point when they will start looking at practices and principles which of the higher value for them to pick up and start working. So that was there. And maybe this could be the last one on my slide that talks about how do we really ensure the good flow and skills of work, good flow of skills and work. So at this point of time, we are proposing that maybe business and PO can start talking about, can we really split the stories while still providing the values? So people should definitely foster this conversation time and again, that we are having a lot of stories, but can we really split them into smaller chunks, so that people find them valuable to pick up and complete, and at the end we still have the business value as well. And as I heard in one of the recent Scrum webinar, it was very beautifully quoted, and it was this thing that the best people pattern people can have into Agile or Scrum and other frameworks is that people should really understand what they are doing and also why they are doing something. And at the end, if people are able to really slice that work in a meaningful way and then pick up the right slice at the right point of time, then that becomes a right people pattern, a very beautiful people pattern. And I think having this kind of conversation with each other will definitely make sure that people are doing that, understanding what to do, why to do, and again slice that and then pick up what really brings the value, and not just doing something because we are working for 8 or 9 hours in an organization. Uh, the next to it. So this is something that we just came out, and we are very happy that we are proposing this. It has got a lot of notion, a lot of significance, and I can see Padma man's big smile as well, because this is very close to our heart now. We are proposing that Agile it's sort of a garden, which have got a lot of beautiful flowers. Visualize them as Scrum and Kanban and XP. These are all just spread across the big garden. The first picture talks about smelling, and we will talk about in brief. The second talk about picking the flower, and third one talks about bringing them together, maybe making a nice bunch. So when we say smelling, what do we really mean? We'll just talk about it. So we are just proposing that into the garden of Agile, people should be open enough to smell a particular methodology, to be very nimble, to try it out, to read more about it, and keep our boxes open. That is to say, we can accommodate some more practices from outside, whether we are Scrum or we are XP or we are Kanban. We are still open to adapt to other practices, to with an intention to become agile. So that is what we are proposing. That via smelling, be just open and go and smell what is going outside, and if you find it valuable, what do you do next? That is that you pick up that flower. When we say pick up, you pick and make it your practice for some time at least, and you start building upon that. And then if you find it really valuable, then what you do next is that you make that flower a part of your bundle, a part of your bouquet. You bind it together, and you let that addition really multiply for you. And this is very meaningful, that we were thinking that we are asking people to add practices from outside, but why are we really doing it? Because we want to multiply the happiness, multiply the outcomes, and multiply everything that we do together. So we are absolutely coming to the end, and this is what the message that we are creating, that smell, and if you like it, then pick it and then bundle it together and find mutual benefits across different agile methodologies that we have. So that is the message that we are creating, that into the platform agnostic agile transformation, be open to smell, be open to pick, and be open to bundle the wonderful agile bouquet that you want to have. With that, I will just hand it over to Padma ma'am to say some words, and then we'll come.
You've done a good job. I mean, you've just clearly presented the what's our view. So uh, yes, so just don't go by belief always. Belief is something which we have not experimented whether it's right or not. But realization is something we have done. So agile itself is empirical. So let's do go for empirical approach rather than belief approach for implementing agile transformations. Throughout my journey implementing agile in various organizations, we have customized what is the package needed for the organization, and I request the same for everyone here to think about how we are doing, what can be know what is the better way, how far each one of the component will work, or you can even go for a totally framework agnostic stuff. So this paper will be published. Kindly have a reference and create your own agile framework exclusive for you, which will be wonderful for your organization, like Spotify has done. Spotify has started with Scrum, but now their engineering practices says about Agile more than Scrum. So similarly, create your own model and be and no, a light to the world like Spotify has done. Thank you so much.
Yeah, to add some more points, even when you, Padma, when you are highlighting Spotify, Spotify also told that, it is working for us. It may not be working for you. And recently I heard Spotify also, they evolved and they move out of that model, and they they have moved to other ways of, accepting the things, right? And as you correctly pointed out, in the current context, and, going forward, so one prescriptive framework may not be successful for an organization, right? And we are already aware that the prescriptive agile is anti-pattern. So I think your attempt to bring, or the suggestion to bring the principle-based framework, designing a framework is a very good approach, which everyone we need to think about, and it is a good point that both of you brought, Mahesh and Padma.
Absolutely.
Okay, very well done, Mahesh. The presentation which you have even here is have mindful of thoughts and so colory, and even though so colory, it has the story behind it. Okay, that is how it was actually expected, and it was there. So it was very good. I had a question here. Okay, in the chat from KK. How do we move uh, velocity capacity stuffs in our organizations, and how can we bring in that mindset and move towards outcome?
Yeah, Prasad. Even I looked at that chat window, and this question was really very powerful. And I would try to address it in from a different perspective. That when we are looking at velocity, forget about velocity for a while and start focusing on your demos. So maybe even if you're doing less, but if your stakeholders are happy, they are bringing in the right value, and they're excited to bring in more features of similar sort of, and the work is coming in, and people are finding value in what we are accomplishing. That maybe the focus can move away from velocity to the real throughput. That could be one of the indirect way to bring the focus down from velocity and bring the focus more on throughput and outcomes. That would be my take.
Okay, good. Okay, in a lighter note, if I have to answer this question, okay, what I will say is even we can measure the velocity of sound and light, but we can't measure the velocity of and capacity of the organization, because it has the people political mindset. So
Wow. Just gonna say wow.
I think everyone will agree to what you're saying, Prasad.
yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
I have a quick question. In the identification process, I love that you said that the whole stepwise approach makes sure that the identification has so many people involved. It's not just one agile coach and one top level tier person who's smelling those flowers per se, right? There's a list of people who you've mentioned who can be part
Correct.
of this identification process. I think inclusiveness is what will make it more powerful. Having that said, is it possible that people go for the agnostic transformation journey and then they identify that agile is not for them? That probably could be possible. What if they have a taste and then they identify this is not working for them, right? You must have seen that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, so it again comes down to what agility really is. I think that's my thought, that even if people discover and people give it a lot of thought, and they experiment with it, and at the end if they find that this is not agile, then what is agile for them, they can pick that. Agile is just about that, finding what works for us, and inspecting and adapting. So I think that's the beauty of agile. No matter how much people change, at the end they will be just doing the real agile.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So Mahesh, great presentation. My question on the velocity capacity thing, right? So that's because I wanted to have some more food for thought, right? So in terms of you proposing the framework agnostic agile transformation, maybe we could consider this as well and see how we can do away the velocity capacity concepts in the future, and totally give a mindset to people that it is not framework dependent at all.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, to add to this, there is no word called velocity throughout the Scrum guide, but it is
Yeah.
tightly Scrum. So I agree with that. But let's keep this question open. But some of the organizations now are going for whoever the organizations teams have gone for restage or Shuhari, where it has gone for restage. They're going for some estimate called no estimate, where teams pick up on the top priority of no user stories with their uh, because that's how humans work. How far I have done, okay, I can do it to this level. Do you know a figure for that? There is no figure. So we are slowly moving towards no estimates now for the quite mature teams. Maybe we will expect more teams to go for restage and go for next level of estimation techniques. But that's a curious wait from all of us. Yeah.
But that is a pain point that will have that needs some sort of resolution, right? Because even in today's date, when agile has been around for 20 years, we have people who say that how come you're doing this much 40 points of a velocity? Are we really agile? Are we really doing scrum? It has nothing to do. The two don't have much to do with each other apart from the fact of how much the team can take up. But the constant relatability is always there. So that's a great thing if this can solve for it.
Yeah, as said by Batma, Scrum doesn't, or even Agile doesn't have a velocity measure of the capacity or the productivity. But Agile velocity is a different estimation, which we will report the progress of the team. It is only the progress of the team and not the individual performance or not the productivity performance. It is actually the release of the team. I mean, progress of the team.
Actually, velocity will tell you the not even the progress. It will tell you about the predictability of the team. The only metric you can get from velocity is predictability. How far my team is predictable, given and no, they are taking for a sprint, how far they will be able to keep up their predictability. So that's the only outcome from the velocity. Unlike other many organizations, things that they project their productivity or performance or know outcomes and various other factors. That's not the fact. The only thing you can see from a velocity is predictable. So, as cited, we can keep this question open. In fact, we can do some research on this on the future of estimation in Agile, maybe in our next conference, or someone can present in other conferences too. But that's an food for thought for you all to take up this and
Yeah.
think about what can be the next evolution of estimation. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Silence is a good thing. Okay. Here. Thanks, Mahesh. Very good presentation which you have made. Okay. So over to you, Prasad.
Oh, okay. As Padma said, no estimates. If we move to the no estimates and all, it needs maturity. So as you pointed out, we have three states, right? Suhari, right? And very few organizations are even willing to move ahead. So this absorbing the real agility. So it is a way forward for us to move to that state. So yeah, I think it was a good presentation. You gave your nice thoughts, Mahesh. I think those who are here, so we can take it as an outcome for us, and we can also try to frame our own framework, right? So yesterday also we could see there were some frameworks that were designed by Kiran, right? And today also we could see, right? So it was even humble. It was like a framework, and today also we could see the psychological side of the agile implementation. So it is a different type of framework. So through this conference, if we are able to design many frameworks, so that will be the real outcome. Yeah. So all the very best, Mahesh and Padma and the team. So over to you, Prasad.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prasad and Padma, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Prasad, you are speaking in mute.
Oh, so I'm sorry. Okay, thanks, Mahesh, thanks, Padma, thanks, Prasad, and Mahesh, your presentation was very wonderful, marvelous, and thanks. And we will move to the next research paper.